There are many hot areas within embedded finance, but vertical software as a service companies tend to launch embedded finance products much sooner than anybody else. Which makes a lot of sense if you understand that vertical software as a service companies aggregate functionalities from different areas into one solution for one specific target audience. In this podcast, I speak with Marcel Mansfeld, the co-founder and CPO of ToolTime. ToolTime targets businesses in the German craft industry, and its software includes features such as time tracking, documentation, quotes, and invoices. Last year, the company launched ToolTime Pay, a digital payment product. And embedded finance was in the founder's head since the beginning. In the podcast, we speak about ToolTime's journey in embedded finance, what Marcel and his team learned about offering financial products, and his advice for fellow founders. My name is Lars Markel, and this is the Embedded Finance Review podcast. Every 2 weeks, I'm interviewing the builders and shapers of embedded finance. And a quick reminder from my side. At Embedded Finance Review, I publish weekly newsletters, bi-weekly podcasts, and host in-person and virtual industry events. You can find more about all these activities on our website, embeddedfinancereview.com. In addition, I also work with non-financial brands, infrastructure providers, and banks in understanding, designing, and launching their embedded finance products. If you're interested in working with me, visit the Embedded Finance Review website and reach out. And now, let's dive in. Hi, Marcel. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today, and in what part of the world are you located right now?
Hi, Lars. Thank you for having me. I'm doing fine. I'm in Berlin, I guess, as you are too.
Exactly. We just learned in the chat before that we are almost neighbors here in Berlin, Friedrichshain, but yeah, still doing a remote recording.
Yeah, time to meet for coffee, definitely.
Let's do that. But before that, let's dive into the show, into the episode. Marcel, with ToolTime, you are providing a digital solution for the craft industry. So as a commonly referred maybe as a vertical SaaS play, maybe you can also say critical business software solutions for one specific industry. Obviously, as such a company, you typically offer a wide range of features, but very often there's also like one that stands out that's the most important one for the target audience. Is it also in your case? Maybe you can highlight what the biggest pain point, especially at the very beginning with ToolTime, that you solved for your customers.
Yeah, a great question. I mean, obviously, it is a variety of topics. It's hard to pinpoint one single reason out why customers would use ToolTime. Obviously, digitization is a big driver behind everything. So by now, the entire industry has understood the advantages of digitizing the business. Basically, one of the main promises of ToolTime is to go completely paperless or paper-free in the office, right? So in the past, tradespeople would basically work with paper as an exchange between the office and, for example, the workers on the field at the customer side. They would write down and document their stuff on a paper. That piece of paper would need to go back to the office to produce an invoice afterwards. And there's many examples where this piece of paper has been lost and then the business would never be able to write an invoice. I think that's one of the biggest advantages, though. And obviously, there's also regulatory changes. In Germany, especially, we have seen the introduction of e-invoices, e-Rechnung. So that is obviously also a driver that there's new regulations that just describe how you have to digitally write invoice in the future and so on. I think there are many avenues to why a ToolTime is just a good choice for tradespeople.
Understood. And then maybe you can describe a little bit like who your ICP is, like who is your ideal customer profile. And then maybe in a second step as well, when you've described the ICP, maybe you can also try to maybe walk them through a typical day, how their business, like what they're doing in a day and what the touching points are with ToolTime during that day.
Yeah, sure. So we are like trades agnostic, but we do have a very big customer group, which consists of HVAC, so plumbers, electricians. So those trades who have a very high technical profile, I'd say, because they are also heavy on the documentation part of things. And that brings me to the second part of your question. So what's a typical day in the life of our customer would look like? They are office workers, they use our web app and they maintain their customer data there. When you would call them because you need to renovate your bathroom, they would take in your data, they would schedule a visitation. The workers would receive this appointment on their mobile app. They would then visit you, they would document everything, would take pictures. Maybe they would ask you for a floor plan whatsoever. And they upload everything in the app right away, take a picture of it, then it lands back in the office. Basically, it's a cloud software. So it's in real time, it's available back in the office. They are able to produce a quote for you. You will receive the quote, you can digitally accept it or reject it. Then basically, in case you accept, you're happy with the quote, the appointment would be scheduled when the renovation happens. After it's done, they would document everything also with the mobile app again. You would sign that everything has been done to your satisfaction, and then the office is basically able to write an invoice based from that. And all the information flows from the beginning, from the quote through the appointment on site to the invoice. No information gets lost on its way. So that's one of the big advantages when we were talking earlier about in the past when paper was involved. And then with ToolTime Pay, I think that's also something we're going to talk about. This is an embedded finance podcast. So at the end of the day, you pay hopefully using ToolTime Pay, and then we have basically the entire loop is closed. Yeah. And maybe also just one more thing, what I forgot to mention. So we are addressing the trades, but we are really good in the company size 1 to 10 employees. So you find some solo entrepreneurs even, but up to 10 employees, which is typically family owned businesses. This is the sweet spot for us where our product is really strong.
And this, I mean, maybe like outside of the individual person, like if it's a company from, let's say, 2 to 10 people in that range, as you described it, there are typically two type of personas using the software. One sitting at the desk, maybe sometimes even the same person, but maybe very often also a different person. One at the desk using the web app, specifically maybe before the work and maybe at the very end of the work, meaning like first sending out the quote and at the end maybe sending the invoice. And then in between also the person who's basically the plumber, the electrician who's actually doing the work is using a mobile app to document that. But then is there also, do I, as a potential customer of a ToolTime powered store, do I also have ToolTime Pay, of course, we're going to talk about that. But outside of that, is there any kind of like touching points with me, with a ToolTime brand? Would I know if a plumber is using ToolTime? Yes or no?
Yeah, so you would notice by now, because we have now built various products where we are reaching out a little bit to the customers of our customers. So if our customer would be using ToolTime Pay, obviously the moment you want to pay an invoice, you would end up on a landing page, which is powered by ToolTime Pay. It's very subtle. I mean, at the end of the day, it's their customer, not ours. But obviously, we are having a digital payment process there, which it has to follow certain regulatory rules as well. And that is powered by us. And then also recently we launched a web version of quotes where you can also see pictures and videos included in quotes, because that's something what we've learned from our customers. They would like to show something as part of a quote to their customers, like a bathroom. Maybe sometimes there's a video from the manufacturer of the bathtub whatsoever. You can include this now into your quotes, and you can look at it digitally. And then you can, as I said, already accept or reject that quote. And that is also obviously a ToolTime hosted landing page. I mean, those are the two areas where the main interaction happens. Obviously, you receive emails. We send emails on behalf of our customers to their customers. We send text messages when it comes to appointment confirmation and these kind of things. But we don't have yet a marketplace or portal where you could look up for an electrician or something like this. This we don't have. We haven't launched this yet. Never say never. Maybe that comes at some point. Yeah.
I guess it makes a lot of sense to obviously first solve the problems of your actual customers and focus on them. I think when you have achieved that and they're able to go to another pace, and that makes sense. Okay, interesting. And as you said, like it's an embedded finance podcast, and you mentioned that the ToolTime product already. What I understood right now, you spoke about a digital journey where I get an email in my inbox for the invoice that the plumber is done, and then I can pay it digitally. Can you explain a little bit more? How can I exactly pay for an invoice? Is it only digitally? Can I also pay in person? And explain that a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, before we have launched ToolTime Pay, obviously it was the normal payment world. So they were sending out invoices and they were asking for bank transfer. I think that is the default payment method in the crafts industry. Sometimes in some trades, you see that they also are collecting the money on the side. If they have maybe just little installment services or something where someone wants to get a lamp installed or so. So there is a little bit of an on-site payment aspect to the industry, but it's really the minority. And in the moment when we launched ToolTime Pay, obviously we had to launch it with having bank transfer in mind. I mean, without it, that would be completely not what the market would ask for. But obviously we added to the mix also card payments, which I think is a novum in the craft industry. So you can pay your little installment services or whatever it is with your credit card or debit card digitally. And then in the future is something we have not done yet, but I think in the future, what is particularly interesting, especially for our customers, to be able to offer them maybe a buy now, pay later or pay in installments kind of features, which is also something that is basically unseen in the craft industry up until now. And that's certainly something super interesting what we are looking into in the future.
Interesting. And from a ToolTime perspective, was a payment, embedded finance, but specifically maybe a payment feature, something you had in mind at the very beginning when you launched ToolTime, that you will want to do this at one point? Or is that something you learned over time while speaking and building a solution for your customers?
I mean, we always knew that there might be a point in time where we look into payments, but it was definitely not part of the original vision. ToolTime is a very customer-driven company. So the way we do product is really by trying to obtain as many insights as possible. We have a database of more than 50,000 insights coming from customer service interactions, coming from sales conversations, coming from interviews, surveys, whatever. And it became pretty obvious pretty fast that payment is definitely something interesting to look into, because in the end of the day, we are basically offering almost like an operating system for these small businesses, right? So they do everything with ToolTime from A to Z. So that is what I just described to you. And payment is just at the very end. In the moment, if you don't do this, you still have a friction in the process, right? You would need to go out and look up your bank account, check the bank statements, account statements, compare them with the invoices, see which invoice has been paid, which has not been paid. And I think that's just so time. It's such a waste of time. And that was also the main driver behind ToolTime Pay, because our customers were telling us how much time they lose with running after their money. I mean, that is the unfortunate reality, that the payment morale is not always very good. And especially smaller trades companies, if they have a big project and they are not being paid, it can be quite quick, very threatening to them in terms of paying their few employees they have. So it is a topic that is very serious and it's very important for our customers. And that's why we ended up seeing this in the insights and decided that we would like to go for something like ToolTime Pay.
Understood. And maybe can you tell us, like, where did you launch the product, like the ToolTime Pay product? When did you launch the payment product? And can you share some kind of like insights about like payment usage? I mean, what specifically you mentioned is before such a solution was even possible, almost everybody paid by bank transfer. Now you're offering cards as well. Can you say, is it being used at all, or is there the behavior as expected, or something new you learned?
I mean, the product in its current shape, ToolTime Pay, as you probably know it, is live since roughly a year. But it was not the first version we went live with. So in the beginning, we were, for technical reasons, we were going with card payments only. And of course, we knew that bank transfers are a necessary part, but we saw it as an incremental step for technical reasons after the cards only. But I must say that didn't go well. And by now, if I look at the mix of payment methods nowadays, I mean, we're talking about card payments being around 1 or 2% of the entire volume. So it's even less than the benchmark numbers we know from e-commerce and so on, because I think there's multiple factors playing into this. So first of all, I think it's quite uncommon in Germany to pay your electrician with credit card. I mean, it's quite uncommon in Germany in general to pay things with credit card.
Especially in Berlin.
Yeah. And then obviously also as soon as the amount gets higher. So, I mean, if you're talking about renovation projects or so, I think we're also talking about amounts that are typically not being paid with credit cards. So we learned that relatively quick, which is, we have this principle of launch something fast, learn fast, and change if necessary. And we did that. And now bank transfer is the number one leading, but there's some growing volume in card payments as well.
Because I mean, I think again, this is not a surprise to anybody, I guess, out there, especially understanding the German market, that there is bank transfer so popular. But I would also assume that maybe for smaller invoices more, that, how do you call them, like the payment links on the invoice, and then potentially entering card details and making a quick payment can be even done something relatively easy on the go. Yes, even an open banking transfer or a bank account transfer, you can also do on the go. But I think we can all agree, if you're using your mobile phone for quite a few things, then obviously just opening the link, entering card details, maybe even pre-saved in your password manager or similar, and then just entering goes super fast. And of course, companies who promote payment links would always argue, and I guess there's a case for that as well, that people pay faster and might not fall behind payment terms as well. So there might be also, for maybe not for every single payment, but for some payments, also an incentive for your target group also to push these things a little bit more.
Absolutely. It's one of the value propositions we would like to push further. Yeah, so getting paid faster. For sure, we see it with wallet payment methods that are being paid faster. I mean, you receive the invoice with an email, there's a big button in it, you click on it, you have to pay. You use Apple Pay, for example, and it's done. Yeah, and I think, and you can still sit on the couch and not move watch my French, not move away from what you were doing. And I think that's a big advantage, obviously. And I think we are still at the very beginning of that journey. I think it's totally something what we want to push further on our journey with ToolTime Pay.
Makes sense. And maybe one more question on that one. How did you build the payment product? Who are you partnering with? Quite interesting to understand.
So we're building it with Adyen, which I think was a great choice. I mean, Adyen, they have this embedded finance platform product, which gives us really great flexibility in terms of what to build, what kind of user experience to build for our customers. And I think it's just a very good, I mean, they're just the European player, and we are quite happy with the service they provide to us and the reliability of their services. So there was, I think, a big choice in the beginning where we looked into the various different players, and we don't regret that. Yeah.
Interesting. And obviously not just Adyen, but also Adyen, of course, is a good provider for specifically the ToolTime Pay product. But obviously a company like Adyen, again, also other companies offer other type of products. What's your view on offering ToolTime becoming a provider of offering other financial services to your customers? Is that something you would consider, or definitely not because the existing, let's say, relationship or existing circumstances are too complicated for you to break up?
It has certainly always been part of the vision. So we never had a payment-only vision. We always looked at embedded finance as a whole and with its various dimensions. I think it's definitely something we are looking into already. I cannot talk too much about when we're going to launch something, but we are actively looking into this already. And again, it's coming from what kind of value can we bring to our customers, right? And it's just great how integrated workflows you can build with embedded finance, right? We don't do embedded finance just because we think it's trendy and hot. We really believe there is a value and like a chance to reduce time waste. And I think just one example, I mean, we were talking about getting paid, but also the other hand, paying your invoices is really important. So especially in our customer group, they have projects usually for your bathroom renovation. They would order the bathtub and everything from a wholesaler, and then this invoice would be imported into ToolTime. We would read that invoice out and schedule its payment automatically so that you don't forget to pay your wholesalers, which is also a very crucial business relationship our customers usually have. So again, you have everything in one place. We can then make statements about how efficient your project is. Are you making a profit with it? Are you maybe not making a profit with it because the initial calculation maybe was off and you need to have a conversation with your customer? I mean, these kind of things, it just has a value itself if that is all happening in one digital solution. Therefore, launching something like a business account would bring that benefit to be able to transfer money somewhere else. And I think that is the main reason why we would do something like this.
And you said something interesting, and it also connects to what you said before. Obviously, there is a strong, I mean, I guess this is applicable to a lot of companies out there, but especially for like a vertical software as a service provider, which by definition is about like packing a lot of things, a lot of different activities into one tool for one specific audience. And you described how important it is for you to take care of this whole customer journey. But when you describe it, I'm just realizing as well, like in a way, you could also consider to build maybe not the card payment, but the bank transfer. A lot of the things you could have also built with open banking, right? You could have also connected to existing bank accounts instead of creating new wallets or new things behind there. Is this something like open banking which you also actively looked at, and why not that?
I was waiting for the question last.
With my background in embedded banking and open banking, it's a shame I didn't ask it before.
Yeah, of course. So I think it's probably some topic we can also discuss when we finally meet for that coffee. But in my perspective and in our perspective at ToolTime, I just think that the open banking world and the PSD2 world, it just doesn't provide the user experience I would want to our customers. So you have all the authentication issues which you have all the time. And I think you cannot build the same level of integration with your balances, with, again, project efficiency, your payments, and so on. So, and I believe especially when you talk about customer groups that are less digital native, I would say, less digital maybe like our customers, I think this becomes very, very important. Like they are most of the times afraid of technical solutions they don't understand, and they are not very patient. These are typically super busy people. They are usually family owned, where every time they put into this is family time they have to take away. And to be honest, they're very passionate about what they're doing, but they're telling you also very quickly if there's something is off for them or they don't want to invest time. And I believe they're not holding back. It's great to be a product person because you get the feedback directly and that's good. But I believe this, and it's probably a philosophical topic, but I believe you cannot reach the same user experience with open banking. But someone out there who wants to prove me wrong can reach out to me.
And it's an interesting point. Like sometimes when I think about these whole thing, and again, of course, I have a long background in both like open banking and embedded banking, embedded finance. I don't know, sometimes I like joke when I say maybe PSD2 open banking was a chance for banks to be that role. And in a way, I wouldn't say APIs are like generally bad anymore. I mean, maybe there was a time, but I would definitely say, as you said, like the user experience is like quite different. But what we said before as well, right? It's not as easy also to just initiate a transfer from the couch. Yeah, people like us who spend a lot of time in fintech, they can be doing it and it's not a problem. But family members would probably not really do that, while they would very easily use a card payment or maybe an integrated account transfer, stuff like that, right? So I guess maybe there was a chance for open banking to kind of reduce the impact of embedded finance, but maybe banks didn't use that in that extent.
But Lars, what you earlier said, you have a point there, right? For some of our customers, it's hard to understand why they would need to switch their bank. And in reality, they don't have to switch their bank. They just have another account, which is basically an account where it's just the operational transactions are happening, right? But you have a generational change also happening in general, and especially in our target customer group. And I think they would never do something like this. They would not trust it. They would go still with their Sparkasse konto, which is okay, obviously, right? And some who are more open to these kind of solutions. And I think over time, it's a little bit like with cloud computing when it started. That's how I see it also. I think over time, the idea of embedded finance will be something we are looking at something very normal at some point, right?
Totally agree. It might maybe a bit biased, but totally agree with that statement, Marcel. And coming to that, your company ToolTime raised, if I'm correct, 55 million euros to build all that. It's pretty impressive. Congrats for that alone. But maybe specifically connecting that to the embedded finance angle, was payments, was embedded finance somehow a story point, an important story point in your fundraising? Was it something which on the investor side, I'm sure you talk to many investors out there, was it something that was important or they didn't care about it at all? Quite curious to hear how this worked.
Yes and no. I mean, obviously in the beginning, as I said, the initial vision did not necessarily include embedded finance. It was more or less that we were seeing back in the days when we were almost alone out there still, being the crafts industry being one of the last verticals to be digitized almost. And since then, a lot of things have changed. We have some great competitors as well. So the market is huge. And our customers are also different than they were 6 years ago, I must say. Yeah. So nowadays, you don't have to argue anymore with cloud software, yes or no. And I think that was the core pitch we had also for our investors. I mean, we are very lucky. We have a very stable and supporting investor in the background. But of course, I mean, ToolTime Pay was more of a recent strategic move in the last, let's say, 2 to 3 years. And in the conversations we had since then, it is obviously being seen as a huge strategic advantage. And in terms of revenue diversification, it's absolutely seen as a plus to have with what we're offering with ToolTime Pay.
Do you monetize the payment product directly in a way? Is it possible? Or?
We are monetizing it from the beginning, yes. So it's transactional. Our customers, there is a percentage for credit cards, but again, this is not so much what's driving, but there is a 1% cut on bank transfers, which are kept with 10 euros. So for maximum 10 euros, basically what our customers get right now is a complete peace of mind after you've built the invoice, right? So we are marking an invoice ideally as paid whenever we see the funds coming in. If that isn't the case, we have an automated dunning process afterwards. So basically, ideally, they don't hear anything after they close an invoice if the customer is paid. If not, at some point, we would just say, hey, we've done 2 times now. You need to take this to a lawyer. And I think that's the real value behind it. And it's not so much, I mean, obviously, this includes payment. But again, it's this integrated process which brings the value of time saving for our customers. And that's in the end of the day where our customers are willing to pay for.
Interesting. I think this is also what in the whole world of embedded finance people try to emphasize as well. I think you can make a lot of money with embedded finance, but it's not so much about making money from the financial products directly. I mean, you do directly from them, but you sell something else. You don't sell financial services. I think in your case, what you described, for me, it sounds like you sell peace of mind at the end of it. Maybe not fully peace of mind that it's guaranteed sale, the money is guaranteed coming in, but peace of mind, I don't need to think about this every other day, basically, because again, it's a very busy customer group, a lot of things to take care of. At least for now, I can this and this is taken care of. And when I need to be involved, I will get involved. And until then, it's not not my business, basically. And basically, you pay for that and not so much for receiving money.
Exactly. And then if you put this in context in the crafts industry, where typically these businesses, they have enough customers, then some don't even take new customers. So their life is very stressful. They have project after project. And if you can take that part away, which nobody likes to run after money and check and everything and write dunning letters, that's of great help for our customers. That's exactly where the value is. Not so much the payment, but this value in general is what differentiates you from other solutions out there.
For sure. And did ToolTime or maybe Marcel learn something about payments, about embedded finance since you launched it? I mean, not maybe the very obvious ones, but was there something where you thought, oh, I had no idea about that one?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's so much to learn and we are still learning. I mean, this is really, we see it as we're being in there for the long run. And that's really something I can tell to your listeners who are maybe also considering building embedded finance into their product. You got to be in there for the long run. So it's the value you have to adjust. I mean, I said already earlier that we kind of pivoted once before we really launched it because we learned something. And then even now we had to pack it together in this nice value package, what I just described. Up until that, it was basically, we were not able to scale, right? But the moment we had the value right, it's going fine. But even then, it's not that your customers, the moment you launch it, they're just like, boof, onboard me. So it is something you need to have a big enough customer base and then you can scale into this customer base. And I think that's certainly something we have learned and we are still learning because we are at the beginning of our embedded finance journey and there's so much more ideas we have and so much more to do. And it will be a constant learning process, especially when we're doing B2B ERP basically. That's what we're good at, right? And then we combine it with something where we're typically not really good at, finance. So you've got to be open to learn something and then I think you will listen to your customers and then you're on the right track.
And how is ToolTime internally structured when it comes to the payment product? Is that, I mean, you're the CPO, is that something where there's let's say a product team, a product manager specifically responsible for payment or is that more on different kind of shoulders?
Yeah, we do have one dedicated product team. We call them squads. They are dealing or responsible for all billing features and payment included. So because that is very much connected to each other and they are dealing with it.
Okay, interesting. And you said that before as well, I think a little bit like, I mean, obviously ToolTime is a vertical SaaS, a business critical software as a service provider, looking at also like outside of other companies in the space. Not sure if you're going to go to events or connect with peers, maybe not directly competitors, but like other type of like vertical SaaS. What's your view on embedded finance in other tools? Is that something where like in Europe, you're seeing a lot of it already happening, or are there more in this kind of like question mode where they're asking you what your experience is, if they should do it or not? Like when you put it on a, let's say on a scale, how far is embedded finance in European vertical SaaS?
It's hard for me to say. I think you're the better expert there, how far it is on a scale. All I can say is that I think if you build something B2B that in what is like something like ERP or which is like very close to the core business processes in the different verticals, I think there's almost no way around it because at the end of the day, businesses exist to make money and there are workflows around that, especially if the business has a lot of transactions and interactions and projects with customers. I think the power of deeply integrated embedded finance processes directly into your software is something which will not go away. I think this is just, you can build such great products with it that I believe there is no way around it. What's the alternative? Like manual work with your bank account? Like, I don't know. Maybe open banking gets better at some point.
Maybe that's the takeaway here. That's the opportunity for banks, basically. If they want to stop maybe embedded finance, then this is one way. But following up on that question, the previous question, do you have advice for other, maybe specifically vertical SaaS or also general? Like how did you decide that now is the time for you to build a payment product? Like you said, it kind of was there from the beginning, but you didn't do it maybe on day one, you did it a little bit later. Yeah. How did you know now was the right time?
Yeah, good question. I mean, obviously in the beginning, we had to build more important features. We started from scratch with a software for craftsmen, and we had to build certain billing features first and so on. But we reached a certain product maturity after time. And then we also learned from our insights, as I said, that this became a more pressing topic. And that was a moment where we decided, okay, let's try. Also, the customer base has grown. We have more than 20,000 customers now, basically, in Germany. So we have a large customer group that we can sell this product to, because that's typically a sell into your existing customer base, not so much into new customers. And obviously some see that there is ToolTime Pay and so on. That's the reason why they go with ToolTime for sure. But your main sale is into the existing customer base. And obviously that needs to have a certain size before it makes sense. And I think that would be my advice also to others out there, that you have to really be sure when is the right time to do it, because the moment you start it will eat resources away. You have to maintain it. You have to give customer service. You're offering a financial product, so to say, even though you're only facilitating in the end of the day. But it is a decision you make for the long run. And you got to have the customer base and also the team size and the organizational environment in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I have to think about two things right now. One of the things was actually in a previous podcast that I recorded with a person named Paul Staples, also quite active in the world of embedded finance. And we spoke about the whole topic of jobs to be done, right? At the end of it, what you want to do is whenever you build like a product, you want to figure out what problems you want to solve for your customers, right? And again, for a payment product, it's obviously kind of like a payment product is required. And this means like I'm building embedded finance, but sometimes it's like really understanding what does exactly mean? How does it, I mean, we know how payments works, but how do you embed the payment well enough so this is like a jobs to be done proper kind of experience, right? And this is the second thing that I also tend to use on my slides like quite a bit is like 1 + 1 = 3. Like when you use this product, this financial product in a non-financial journey, it shouldn't feel like something separate. And maybe we can argue maybe an open banking transfer is maybe sometimes, or like using open banking for receiving the transfer is sometimes a little bit this kind of experience where it doesn't feel like one user journey, right? And you have to really achieve to kind of one and one, the both ones representing the customer value for the non-financial and financial product. And it's a no-brainer to use that product because it's so nicely embedded. And that, as you said, will take time, right? That's not something with a switch of a button, so to say, like you do it and then it's on. By definition, it will not be perfect from day one. Yes, a payment product might be perfect, but it will not be perfectly embedded, and that takes time. And if you're not committed to do it, then you most likely will fail. And the other thing I want to say is, like outside of vertical SaaS, or maybe in SaaS in general, of course, like Shopify is always referred to as this big role model in the world of embedded finance, making a majority of the revenue as financial services. And I think to put a perspective on that, I think it was the year 2020, maybe 2019, when Shopify was declared like, oh, this is really more of a fintech company than a SaaS company. But I think they launched the first product in 2015 or 2016. So 3-4 years, something like this, it took them from launching the first product to getting to that status. So that shows also it's not something which you just start and then it's done. It requires continuous investment.
Exactly. And especially when you want to build something that compared to the normal traditional bank, you would like to have an unfair advantage, right? And I think that's something what takes time, because you don't want to be yet another bank account. You want to be an integrated bank account, which again, this what I described earlier, these kind of values and processes, and you want to integrate it into the core of everything. Or take lending. So we basically know about the financial situation of our customers, and especially small customers out there. Again, if a project is not being paid, they might go into liquidity issues very quickly. And then this is the right moment in time where you could, with an easy to use lending product, which helps them out for just 1 or 2 months, you can actually achieve a lot. And I think you have to think it this way, that it's not about launching just a random payment product. It's exactly these kind of value proposition, what you want to give to your customers, that makes the difference. And otherwise, your customers would anyways not accept it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think the highlight or the statement of the podcast for me is like, you don't want to offer another financial product, not just another one. It should be a unique one that's so nicely embedded. There's a no-brainer you choose that. Marcel, thank you so much for sharing all the insights. I think vertical SaaS remains one of the, say, like hottest areas in embedded finance. I was quite happy to hear the story directly from you, from ToolTime. If there's a listener out there, maybe even a vertical SaaS founder in a different space who wants to pick on your knowledge and maybe wants to have a coffee chat around your experience, what's a good way to reach out to you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is probably the best way of doing this. You probably heard it on hands already a couple of times.
Every single person. Yes, but that's great then.
Yeah, if you want to reach out to me, LinkedIn. If you're more interested about ToolTime, then go to tooltime.app, our website, and you will find ways of contacting us there.
Amazing. Thanks again, Marcel. Looking forward to our coffee chat maybe soon. And yeah, until next time.
Thank you, Lars. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Thank you for listening. As you might know, I'm always looking for insightful embedded finance stories, especially from non-financial brands. Do you know a company or person I should interview? Please let me know. Until next time.